All right, for this part of the drawing set, we are going to turn this floor plan for the level 1 that we've been working on with all our dimensions and our window and door tags and everything, and we're going to turn this into just a framing plan, which means that we're going to take some of these layers of our walls that are not framing, like the exterior siding and plywood, the interior drywall, all of that stuff, everything that's not framing, and we're going to hide that stuff so that on the drawing sheet we are just looking at the framing, because that is what that's what the construction course needs to be able to see, and that's where we've dimensioned everything relative to the framing. So that's going to be a little more readable and make more sense for the folks doing the framing. So it's not very obvious how we do this, so definitely follow along and watch all the clicks. One thing that I want to do is hide any underlay that I have. I had initially turned on an underlay so that I could see the basement walls below this, but I'm going to go scroll down to the underlay portion of the properties menu, and instead of looking all the way down to level 02, I'm going to set my range base to none, and that is going to hide anything below level 1. It's also good to hold off on this step until you're certain that you have everything properly sized and dimensioned, because once we do this step, we are not going to be able to change the size or the position of things anymore. Our dimensions are going to be pretty fixed. So this should basically be a last step before placing the drawing view onto your sheet and adding your little text notes. So here's how this works. Normally, when you hover over a wall, the entire wall will highlight, and so you're not able to select individual parts of the wall separately. However, what we can do with the wall is to select the whole thing, and in the Modify Walls panel, there is a button that says Create Parts. And what this does is it divides the wall up into its separate parts. Now if I hover over these, I can see the individual pieces highlight, the individual drywall pieces, the individual pieces of framing, and so on. And where two walls meet each other, you get a more accurate representation of how the parts and pieces of the wall actually fit together. So this is a useful thing to be able to see, but in this step we're actually going to hide the parts of the wall that aren't framing. So first we have to create parts. Now that step is the step that makes this very difficult to edit. So once you've made a wall into just parts, changing the dimensions is not as easy as it used to be. So definitely wait to do that. So you can do this with everything. You can click on elements, you can hit SA to select all, and you can create parts for all of that at one time. So there's all my exterior walls made into parts. My middle wall here and all of its segments, I'll create parts. My interior walls, create parts. Then the thicker wet wall in the bathroom, create parts there. So now all of my walls should have been made into parts. And let's see how we can filter out the non-framing pieces. To do this, you've got to go into the View tab at the top of the screen, and we're going to create a filter. We can use filters for lots of stuff. We can filter out just about anything that we want to. I'm going to show you how to make a custom filter here. The filter that we're looking for isn't on the list, so we're going to create one with this button right here, New Filter. And when we do that, we're going to give it a name. Call yours Framing. I already have one called Framing, so I'm not going to use that name again. But once we click that, there's a little box here that asks us to sort of define the rules. And what does this filter pertain to? From this big long list of categories, I want to find parts and check that box. So this filter, this rule, is going to apply to parts. And then we're going to choose a criteria here. Our criteria is going to be the material that it's made from. And then what's the rule? The rule is that we're going to filter out anything that does not equal the material of the framing, which should be softwood lumber. So type that in exactly as it's written in the material library. Again, I'm not going to keep this rule right now because I already have one called framing. So I'm just going to cancel this for right now, but you would click apply. And now, if we click on Visibility and Graphics, we get this window that we're used to where we can check or uncheck different things if we want to be able to see them or not. And if I come all the way over to the right-hand side, I see filters. Now, you may have to, your framing filter may not be here automatically. You may have to click Add and select the framing filter from the list. But then you should be looking at a couple of checked boxes here. Watch what happens if I uncheck the visibility box and I click Apply. It applies that filter. So everything that is not the material softwood lumber, so the drywall, the exterior plywood, the exterior siding, all of that stuff, those extra layers, it all becomes invisible. It's still here. If we look at our 3D model, it'll still be there. It'll still look visually accurate, but it's no longer visible here in this view, in this framing plan. So I'll click OK and accept that and give things a once over. I want to look it over and I want to make sure that the walls join to each other the way they really should. In this case, I can see that one of my floors is sticking out a little farther than it should, so that's something I've got to correct. Another thing I notice here is that my bathroom wall went away. Bathroom wall just vanished on me. So I need to go open up a view where I can still see my bathroom wall, and I need to check on the material here. So let me back up a couple of steps. So this is backed up a couple of steps until before I made parts out of this wall. If I click on this wall and I click Edit Type and investigate the structure here, the core structure on this wall was actually a metal stud. It wasn't softwood lumber. And that's why it filtered out when I turned on my filter. So let me make sure that my core layer here is not a metal stud, but a wood stud. Now I can create parts from that wall. And back to visibility and graphics. If I turn off visibility for this filter, I should still see the framing for that wall. So this is how your floor plan view is going to look once we bring it onto the drawing sheet. If you haven't already, make sure you change the view scale to 1/2 inch equals 1 foot, and that should fit nicely onto your second drawing page. This is nearly complete, but there are still some text notes and other little things that are in the example plans that need to be added to the sheet before we can call it totally done.